Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp of the Limp, and I'm here with Combat exclamation point 2. And we're going to do this one just a little bit different. You notice I got a whole bunch of random counters laid out in front of you guys. And that's because this isn't a game. This is an expansion. This is an add-on to Combat exclamation point 1. All right, so this is volume 2. Adds a whole bunch of stuff to it. And as you can see, even the rule book just picks the hell up right where the first rule book left off. So it's all adding to. One of the things that threw me off when I first was learning about this was the fact that it wasn't standalone. But now that I've got it in my hands and I've opened it and I've started to go through it and do all this stuff, I understand, because everything in here is adding on. There's no repeat components. You need the first set of stuff to get it going. And I was thinking to myself, well, there's counters, there's guys, there's these guys, there's that guy, there's vehicles. What do you mean we need the first box? All that other stuff, all the admin type counters, the orders, the cards. There's no cards in this. You're using all that stuff from the first edition, the first box, Combat 1. This literally just builds upon what already existed. So rather than redoing the wheel, which I'd already done, what we're going to do here is pick up from where I left off on the first one. So I did a first playthrough. It shows how the game plays, all that good stuff. Check out that series to learn about combat. Watch this video to see what is added in Combat 2 and see if you want to add this stuff to your own game. Okay, so I'm basically going to just walk you through the rule book here on all the stuff that's added into it. I'm not going to touch on every single rule. You obviously have to read the rule book to learn it for yourself, but I want you to know what new things you're getting. First thing we're going to take a look at are the elite enemies, which I have laid out for you here. Some examples of all of them. So in this version, this Combat 2, they add in basically replacements. There's enough of these enemy counters to replace all the first ones. You can use these guys in your first, how am I going to say this? In Combat 1. You can use all of these guys in Combat 1. They're all numbered like you see here at the bottom. So the way that you drew enemies, there's dummy counters, there's all that stuff. You're all set. But these have the option to be elite enemies, and that is represented by these symbols down in the bottom right hand corner and one up here in the top right corner of all of the enemy counters. Now these first two represent dodge modifiers, so these guys are actually a little bit harder to injure than the regular soldiers. Really simple. Regular D here is just going to be a -1. D2 is going to be a -2 to all types of fire attacks that are against these types of elite enemies. Then we have one here. This guy is tough. And if you have a tough counter, tough elite one, then you get to draw 2 cards when you're damaging this character. And when you draw those 2 cards, you're going to pick the least damaging of them. And that's what's going to hurt this character. So they do have an extra chance to not be as dead. Then we have a version called Deadly. Here, that's represented by this little skull icon. And think of it as the reverse of tough. This basically does that to enemies. And draw 2, pick 1. All right, so this does it versus like damaging. This does it for like him. That's how that's going to work. Sniper, which is this symbol, this little target symbol, gets a bonus modifier to his weapon skill when he's conducting attacks, and he gets +2, but it's only for his aimed attacks. So if he's aiming when he's conducting a shot, he's going to have an extra bonus chance to hit with that shot. That's what that symbol is going to mean. And then lastly, we have the elite over here on the right. That's what the E stands for. And this guy is going to get a +1 to his TQ. Remember, TQ is that upper right-hand number. And that's going to be applied for all spotting attempts. One thing they do denote for that, though, is that that's up to a maximum of 8 because a 9 will always be a failure in this game. Oh, I actually just realized I forgot to pull one out, but it is easy to understand. There is another elite that has a K in the bottom right instead of an E, and that one is going to be a knife expert that has a throwing knife as an extra weapon that he can use within 2 hexes. So E is eagle eyes, a little bit deadlier, and K is knife expert. And just to show you guys here in the rulebook, there is a new glossary of terms that's going to be right here at the front of it. And it's basically telling you a lot of the new terms that are getting added to the game, like target marker is going to come into effect when they're talking about like enemy crew members, sniper, stuff like that. So any of this new stuff, it's going to be right here at the front, easy to find. Now, when it comes to your own characters, there are some new ones as well. You see here, we got a medic and a commander as well. Now, when it comes to medics, the medics are going to be for your guys and for the enemy troops as well. So there's full-blown medics on both sides. In first edition, there were medical guys like combat medics, but they had combat statistics. These guys do not have combat statistics. They are just flat out medics. Now, the difference is there is a bonus to these guys performing medical procedures, yours and the enemies. And there's a whole mechanic that comes into play when these guys are attacked. So just as an example, if you're doing like a capture a prisoner, right? You want to capture, let's say, a German officer or something, and they've killed your medic. The game just happened to take out your medic. Generally, they're not going to target them, but there are chances where they will target them. Your guys have a good chance that they're going to just automatically kill that prisoner. And it works the same way with the Germans. So it kind of makes them go berserk and changes their morale values and makes them more likely to kill the enemy and less likely to take prisoners if you kill medics. So generally speaking, don't kill the medic. Now, when it comes to stuff like the commanders here, there has been a third squad of friendly characters just flat out added, and it's a platoon as well as like a platoon commander members, so you can field a full platoon. Basically, there's like squads before. Now there's enough characters of your own that you can have a full platoon and like platoon commanders involved in the match as well. Now, as well as the new characters that we were just talking about, new units, both sides got new units. We've also got new weapons. So we have a new weapons sheet that is here also. So you're still going to have the same weapons that you had in Combat 1, but now you've got some more weapons to choose from. And it's got some cool stuff on here. Things like the Maudus, which is obviously going to be on some of the vehicles. We have the 1903 Springfield, so like sniper rifle. The Thompson, so this one can be used to like replace one of those grease guns. So if you got a guy with a grease gun, he can use Thompson instead. Got the 1930 cal machine gun. Also bazookas and Panzerfaust. We're going to touch on them here in a little bit because they have their own counters. And then you see down here at the bottom, got the MG42, which I thought was in the first one, but it might have been the 34. Maybe I'm wrong. And the STG44 has been added. And then you see the stats here for the Panzerfaust, which there are two versions of it, the 60 and the 100. Both of those are added into the game as well. So you got a whole new weapons characteristic sheet full of cool stuff that you can use. And again, you still got the first one from the first edition in the game as well. Now, you'll notice I've got a map laid out. And I've got a map laid out because, one, it gives me something to put all the counters on when I'm sitting here talking about this. But two, I can show you guys some of the new stuff here. I grabbed out this map specifically because it's really cool. And I can't wait to get a damn chance to set this up because I'm so busy during Christmas. I want to set this up. And as soon as I can, I'm going to because I'm going to play this scenario. This is what's called the Abbey. So there is some new terrain on these maps as well. I'll show you the others here in just a sec. The Abbey is my favorite. And you'll notice the other game had buildings, right? Buildings. They had the little circle designated in them. That's a building hex. Yay. You could fire into, out of, no problem. Well, this Abbey's big, right? So the perimeter of the Abbey is the same as the regular building hexes we had before. No worries, same. We're good to go. But you notice there's a different symbol here on the inside of the abbey. So you can actually have characters inside of this building because it's big enough that they can be inside. So obviously outside, they can't be attacked, but there can be combat going on inside this building. There can be a couple of guys, boom, 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 blowing each other up inside. So that's what these circles designate, is the fact that this is the inside of the abbey, and then the outside circles, the ones that are the same as these, just designate that that's the same. It's going to be treated the same as like a building hex that we had in the previous game, but now we've got inside building hexes. Really cool. But there are some other new types of terrain. We got like fountain, fortified building, bocage, and trench depressions. The counters for those, grabbed a couple of these out. So here are the two new counters that we're getting with this one as well. Fortified building, which are going to be treated as buildings, but they do have some special rules, and your scenarios are going to designate like basically where these counters are going to be placed onto the board. Also, we have the trenches, which are the same as like the fortified building. It's more than likely going to be placed based on the scenario that you're playing. It'll tell you where that's going to go. And these are going to be treated as depressions, which also have new special rules. And again, I know I'm going over this kind of quick. I'm just wanting to hit the highlights and let you know what's in here, maybe not all the specifics. And last little one before I forget to mention it, we do now have barbed wire as well, which is rough terrain, is going to prevent a lot of different types of movement. All right, now something else that we're adding in is now weather conditions. So I've got the base one set here. This is clear. We don't have to worry about clear. It's got a night sight on it though, so that can have some special rules for it. But clear is going to be clear. We don't have to worry about it, same as what we had in the previous game. But now we've got rain, mist, mud, snow, and also heavy rain, which is there. And then fog, which is there. I don't think there's some on the other side of mud. And then snow is deep snow. So a lot of these do have two sides to them. Mud's the only one that you don't have to worry about. With rain, you're going to have decreases to like your weapon skill, your firing abilities beyond certain hex limits. And then heavy rain is going to reduce your line of sight pretty severely. When it comes to mist, same thing, you're going to be having your line of sight drop. Kind of interesting in the fact that it's 1d6 plus 4. And there's also a firing penalty when it comes to that. But then fog is like uber mist, which takes that into the next level. And the fact that there's even more restrictions, but there's still that little bit of a variable into it where you roll on the d6. But then when we're also looking at it, this is like the weather stuff, but this is like the effects of the weather stuff. So mud is going to do things like prevent sprint orders, and basically mud and snow are both similar in that neither one of them are going to allow you to sprint. Deep snow is going to prevent you from doing evade or run and gun orders as well, so really slow down your characters. Mud obviously definitely will be hell on vehicles. They're not going to be using fast movement orders if you've got mud, and we're going to be touching on the vehicles here in just a second. All right, so let's slide some of this stuff out of the way so we can touch on one that I am very excited and I love to have in games because it's cool. Fire! Yes, fire is now being included in the game as well, and it will affect certain types of terrain. So there's a bunch of these little fire counters that are getting added in, and certain types of attacks like artillery and mortar will have a chance to cause a fire to happen. Now, when you're looking at your chart here, it tells you the die roll. So you basically want to be equal to or under that, and it's going to depend on the certain types. So your clear terrain isn't going to have fires just sparking off, but different areas can have fire spark, right? So like trees, buildings, hedges, bocage, long grass, orchards, or logs can all burn. So if we had a mortar attack here into these trees and had the correct roll, a fire would begin there. And these fire markers also count as smoke markers. So they will be occluding your line of sight. Now, there's a couple other special rules when it comes to fire. First one is the fact that fire can get worse. It can become a raging fire. Raging fire, you're going to flick over and it's on its red side now. It's going to be more damaging, cause smoke again, just like the other ones will. And that's going to be handled at the end of your turn. Similar to whether or not a fire happens, there's the whether or not the fire grows, right? So you'll be rolling here wherever there is a fire to see if it's going to grow. And if it grows, you're going to flip that over to a raging fire. Roll a 9, though, the fire is going to go out. It blew itself out. Thing is, fires don't just have the ability to grow, they have the ability to spread. So let's just say for our purposes that the wind's blowing that way, going up. If there is adjacent terrain that can catch fire, whatever direction that wind's blowing in, you're going to have to roll for that as well. So there's one more table that you're going to look on to see whether or not the fire is going to be spreading when you're doing your end of turn. So if we had a building here, yeah, that can catch fire. If we got a 1 or under on our D10 roll, that fire would spread up there. You'd have 2 fire markers in the area. And like I said, don't forget that each one of these fire markers do count as smoke markers as well and are going to be blocking line of sight. So, of course, the big thing that's getting added into this version is, or not this version, this expansion, is vehicles. Vehicles are obviously the big hitter when it comes to this one. Huge amount of vehicles getting added. Well, not a huge amount of counters, but a nice variety. There's a lot going on with these. You've got half tracks, you've got trucks, you've got tanks, you've got armored cars. There's a whole bunch of these guys getting added. Plus, there are actually extra counters as well that aren't even part of this one, that already came in this one, that are going to be in Combat version 3. So that's just amazing. I think the Wolverine's one of them, and there's another couple. There's like 4 or 5 that are also in here that don't even have the rules for them yet. So cool. We already got those ready to go. Obviously, there are some, like our tanks here. We got a Panzer IV and a Sherman. They have their turrets as well. So there's counters for these guys because they can point in one direction while their turret is pointing in another. Notice that that red arrow designates what direction the tank is going to go. So since we've got a lot of vehicles and this is man-to-man combat, we are obviously going to have crews added to these as well. So I grabbed out some examples here and you can, let me pan down a little bit. You can see we've got a whole bunch of crews, and these aren't even close to all of them. These are just the ones that I grabbed out real quick, again, as examples. You see for both sides, we got commanders, we got gunners, we've got loaders, we've got driver and co-driver, and they've all got their little stats, and the commander's got a little pistol he can go pew, pew, pew with. So the thing is like, okay, well, we've got these, but they're supposed to go in the tanks, right? So it's supposed to be in this counter right here. Well, not that counter, this counter. So how are we going to designate this? How are we going to control this in game? Well, let me show you. And boom, there you go. There it is. Boom. We've got player aids now for all of our different crews, and they've even got their weapons located right here. Main gun, machine guns, boom. They're putting some stuff out. They're putting some hurt down range. We've got armor characteristics, and we've got damage locations down here, and then the spots for each one of our guys, our commanders, loaders, gunners, drivers, all that good stuff. And there are counters as well to designate whether certain ones, all of them aren't included in that, obviously, but certain ones can be open or closed hatch as well. Man, this is bringing back massive amounts of American Tank Ace vibes looking at this. But this is kind of like American Tank Ace take it to the next level, because now we've got man-to-man combat with tanks. Now, just to show you guys, got a nice picture here that shows what I'm talking about, but your tanks are going to be getting orders just like your guys. Remember, there's 4 impulses that are going on per each turn. So you're going to have impulse 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to put these order counters on your tanks and your individual crew members, letting them know, hey, what's going on? What are they doing? This is emergency stop. I know it's catching your attention because it's big and red. Very specific order given at specific times to the vehicles. But one of the coolest things about this is when you're giving your orders is you've got to kind of plot out where your tank's going on the map. Because when you give that order, you can't change that order, the move order, right? That's what it is. He's going to go in that direction. Emergency stop is the only way you can stop that movement, barring, getting blown up, something like that happening in game. So you really do have to think ahead. Maybe you see what the enemy's doing, and there's even new rules in this game to add extra elements of fog of war, and I can't even get into all of that because it would take too long to explain it. But basically, it adds even more of the fog of war aspects to keep you from knowing barely anything about what the enemy's going to do until they do it. So maybe you tell your tank to roll up this little dirt road here, and then, oh shit, something's coming. Oh damn, I wish I hadn't given that order. I wish I had decided to back up. Well, you can't do that. It's set up that way specifically. So once you get that order, that's what you're stuck with, barring anything like an emergency stop. So when it comes to your vehicles, you're going to have a lot of options. You're going to have multiple of these player aids that let you designate what characters are in there. They can shoot from many of these types of vehicles. Like your half track here does have one of those machine guns, which you can see, boom, 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 put some rounds out with the Maul Deuce. So we've got stuff like that. We've got our trucks. We've got for the enemy, we've got the Panzer IV, another Panzer IV, different type of truck, and different type of truck. And I thought there was an armored car, but I might have missed that one. But it's not just all of this that's going on. You've got things like your spotting charts, right? Your player aids, the line of sight, and then you're going to have multiple ones telling you your hit locations, the damage table. We've got it set for trucks, half tracks, cars, Jeeps, and then vehicle order matrices. So there's a whole game in here just set up based around the vehicles. All right. So think of all the complexity and the fun you had with combat version 1 with the man-to-man orders, and now add that with a tank. So you're not going to have, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tanks to worry about. You're just a tank or two, and you're worrying about those individual orders to your guys, to the enemy guys, what's going on with that. And it just adds that extra depth to the game, right? What's going on. And then obviously you can have things like your trucks and troops in there, and they're going to get out and start running around, gunning down the damn Nazis and doing all that good stuff. And like was mentioned earlier, obviously, if we are going to have vehicles with some armor in it, we've got to have ways to take out those vehicles with things like the bazooka or the Panzerfaust. Now, when it comes to the enemy bazookas, right, they're just going to have power levels. Right, so you're going to have like a Panzer level, and that's how many Panzerfaust they're going to have. For your bazookas, you'll have things like ammo. So your bazooka will have 3 ammo shots, and then as you burn through it, you're going to flick it on down from 2 to 1 round remaining, and you can have a couple of guys carrying this. So you'll have one guy carrying the bazooka, the other guy carrying the bazooka ammo, and they can work together so they can fire that bazooka in one turn. Versus having to load it in one turn and then fire it in the next turn. That's what you'll have to do if you have just one character carrying the bazooka. But if you got the guy carrying the ammo and he gets taken down, you can pick that ammo up. That's going to stay in the hex where he gets taken out. And I know you're thinking to yourself, Gimpy, and you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, that's not too much. I mean, that's some counters and a couple of player aids and some tanks. Okay, well, what else do we have in here? Oh, that's right. We have the campaign version of the game. So this is going to take it to a completely different level. All right, you got your scenarios, and then you got your rules for the campaign. Now, this campaign is deep, and I can guarantee you that because this campaign rulebook is the biggest one in the game. A lot of it is charts, though, so don't get overwhelmed. A lot of this is just information you're going to need for playing the campaign. But in essence, you can take a group of guys, a squad that lands in Normandy, and RPG this thing through multiple different scenarios as a campaign, leveling those guys up and gaining extra skills and experience as you're playing it. So all those counters and information and player aids and stuff that you need to play it that way is included in the game as well. So it's really how deep you want to play it. All this stuff that I've got laid out obviously can be combined with Combat 1. Boom, you're good to go. But we've got Combat 2 with its own scenarios as well. So if you just want to do your one-offs, boom, you've got your scenarios. But like I'm saying, you can take this to the next level and do the whole campaign. And I guarantee you that's going to take you some time because this is not an easy game by any means. And this is going to take it to the next level. It really does add a lot of depth to it. There's chrome. I mean, this thing is dripping in chrome, depth, nuance. There's so much going on with it. Now, I loved Combat 1, Volume 1. I really loved it. I thought it was great. When it comes to man-to-man combat games, there's not a whole lot, especially not a whole lot that aren't miniatures games. So now to actually have one that uses counters, and now they've taken it to the next level where you can have tanks, jeeps, all that good stuff added into it. It really can be as much game as you want it to be. Not to mention this thing adds, what, 5, 6? Can't remember, 5 or 6 full-size maps to it as well. So there's multiple different scenarios, multiple different maps. And like I said, you still got all the maps from the first edition. So again, my biggest gripe originally was the fact that I was like, damn, I want it standalone. I want everything in the same box. But like I said, this box is freaking full. The whole thing, it's full. Regular 2-inch box, and it was packed to the damn brim with counters, maps, player aids, all that good stuff. And all of it is adding to what you already had. They really didn't have the room to put in the ability to have this be a standalone game, not without adding an extra inch of depth at least. This is one of the few games I'm going, okay, cool. I get why you went expansion. No problem. I'm cool with it because there's just a sick amount of gameplay that got added to this thing. I would guarantee you, hands down, that if you got Combat 1, you are going to get far more gameplay out of Combat 2 than you did Combat 1. There's just that much more gameplay. When you add in the campaign to it, it's not even a question. It just blows it out of the water. Real quick, before I end this, I'm going to show you one thing, because if you're like me, this is going to excite you, and it's going to tip you over. Just right here, first little page of our campaign book. Character XP gain and skills acquired. All the things that you can do for your guys. Adding them, making them medics, giving them stealth, quick reactions. It looks awesome. Can't wait to try it. Freaking awesome. But when I get a little extra time, I am planning to sit down and check this Abbey out. There's a mission in there in the book that I think will work really well for it. Kind of like a Pavlov's house thing where your HQ is in the Abbey and you're trying to hold off against the German assaults as they are coming in. You guys stay tuned for that. It's going to be a little bit, but I will get to it as soon as I can. Anyway, I hope this did help you, give you enough information to let you know whether or not Combat 2 is for you or not. If you've got one, it's for you. I guarantee it. If you liked one, it's a no-brainer. Get it. And again, I have to say thanks to my boy Greg, because he did send this to me. He did some work on the game. So technically it wasn't sent to me by Compass, but he got a copy of it that he didn't need because he already had one. And he made sure to send it my way, which I really do appreciate it because I couldn't afford to get it. Otherwise, not during this time of year with all the kids and crap for Christmas and all the other good stuff. So he really did me a solid. And Greg, you're awesome, buddy. I really appreciate it. this thing. I'm tweaking over this. It's really cool, especially all this stuff. As much as I loved American Tank Ace, this is just sending me into overdrive. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Y'all take care, and I will catch you in the next one.